That is J Callander from his new album Shadows in the Shade. We found the veteran Dunedin musician in his music room where he tells us how he went from listening to Bob Dylan and Simon and Garfunkel to making his own unique form of outlaw space rock.
So I grew up, like in terms of listening to music, just being introduced to music, I grew up listening to my parents' record collection, which was not enormous. My dad, I don't know, maybe he had like 50 records. It might not have even been that.
Right.
But I probably only listened to 10 of them at most. I'm kind of obsessive that way, I've since learned. I find things I like and I stick to them. And sometimes I have to go, hey, Jeremy, there are other options outside of this thing that you've committed to.
Right.
But I took piano lessons from when I was about 10. It was my idea, although, because I saw some guy at school playing piano. I was like, oh, that could be cool. I hated every second of it.
Okay, there you
go. The happiest moment of my life up until that point. And it's been a steady, upward incline since then. But I remember opening the door of our house to walk out, thinking, I got to go to my piano lesson. Oh. And my mum stopping me and saying, oh, actually, Jeremy, look, Dad and I have been talking about it, and you don't have to go anymore. You can learn guitar if you want. It was like,
oh, there you go.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, right.
I hated it, but having said that, I feel bad for my piano teacher. She had, I believe, many successful students. I was not destined to be one of them.
Gotcha. I got to ask you, which one of your dad's records did you listen to, though? What artists?
So, Simon and Garfunkel.
All right.
Bob Dylan. And
there you go.
Yeah, a little bit of Donovan thrown in there as well.
All right, that's all right.
But yeah, I don't know. My dad had 2 or 3 Beatles records, like maybe even just 2. He had Sgt. Pepper's.
Right.
And he had, I forget what it's called, but it's like a greatest hits. It's the one where it's got the 2 photos of the band.
Yep.
Like,
yeah.
Looking out off that balcony.
There's a red one and a blue one of the earlier.
Yeah. And then Simon and Garfunkel, he had Wednesday Morning, 3 a.m.
That's a good
Sounds of Silence.
Right.
Bridge Over Troubled Water, and Parsley, Sage, Rosemary, and Thyme.
Nice.
And Dylan, John Wesley Hardin, and I'm sure he had the one, I can't remember what it's called, where it's just got like the red silhouette of the side of Dylan's head, unless I'm confusing that record with someone else.
I know what you mean.
But the real, for me, the real one.
No, but it's I know what you mean. Yeah. So you grew up on the classics.
Yeah, and Highway 61 Revisited.
Yeah, you can't beat that.
When I think of Dylan, that's what I think of.
There you go. Yeah. All righty. So do you hear any of that in what you're doing these days on Shadows in the Shade?
In a way, yes. Possibly not the Beatles. I don't know. And it's always dangerous to draw comparisons between yourself and any of the greats.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
But
it doesn't stop people.
No. But yes, and I'll try to explain how. I think in terms of, it's hard to talk about this in a useful way, but there's definitely, for me, there's parallels between a lot of the stuff that I write, especially on acoustic guitar. Electric guitar, it's a different thing.
Right.
Between me and Dylan. And I don't say that to compare myself to him or anything like that, but just that kind of folky, country-esque, country-adjacent kind of thing. And I mean, I love, if you said, like, Jeremy, what's your favorite Dylan song? I would say Tombstone Blues.
Right.
I couldn't tell you what that song's about, but man, it's incredible. Lyrically, it's just masterful. Yep. I love, maybe this is it. Because I grew up listening to Dylan, and I love words. I'm a big like Tolkien and C.S. Lewis and Dostoevsky fan.
Right.
So I love good phrasing, and to me, Dylan's lyrics, as completely impenetrable or nonsensical or whatever as they may be, or not, I just thought were in terms of poetry, they were masterful.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
you'd hear him sing these things and go,
They're oblique enough
what does
so
that
that you
mean?
can put your own self in them and make them mean whatever you want them to mean.
Yeah. And then with Simon and Garfunkel, and just to be clear, I mean, Paul Simon's later stuff was never really my bag. Graceland's amazing,
right?
But it was the Simon and Garfunkel era stuff. And I think the big thing was, you know, he'd write these songs that were musically just beautiful, you know,
right?
And then you'd listen to these lyrics that were so bleak, so existential.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Yeah. And I'm listening to this stuff I don't know how old I was. Maybe I was 8 when I started.
Yeah.
But I remember listening, like, if you said, Jeremy, what's your favorite? What's your most important Simon and Garfunkel song? I would say Richard Corey.
Oh, yeah.
And I just remember, listening to that song, and I get goosebumps even thinking about it now. He freely gave to charity. He had the common touch, and they were grateful for his patronage, and they thanked him very much. So my mind was filled with wonder when the evening headlines read, Richard Corey went home last night and put a bullet through his head.
Yeah.
Like, as a kid, I was just that is so heavy. Wow.
And it's interesting. You talk about Simon and Garfunkel, and and you didn't even mention their harmonies, which is what most people think of first.
Oh yeah, and I mean, and they're
that's how that's how much there is there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's amazing. All right, so now you're into doing something called Outlaw Space Rock. Tell me about what that is.
Yeah, and look, and I know how ridiculous and pretentious
that's right. I have a talking point.
So what it was, obviously putting, as you'll know better than many people, putting labels onto music, saying, oh, it's this, it's that, is extremely problematic. Well, fraught anyway. And it can be helpful. It can be incredibly unhelpful. It's a thing.
Yep.
But I was playing a gig, heck, it could be 3 or so years ago now, in the Dunedin Musicians Club. Doing my thing, just playing acoustic guitar, I think. And there was this guy in the audience who he was a biker, I think. Yeah, he was there with his lady, and it turned out they were sitting in the stool next to where my wife was sitting. And so after the gig, I went over to where she was, and he made some complimentary comments about it. Really enjoyed it, and said, and I can't quote it, but he said something about how it was like, oh, some Southern outlaw rock, and I thought, I like the sound of that, because people would, they say to you from time to time, oh, what kind of music do you play? It's like, oh, I don't know,
It's the same thing when you ask people what kind of music do they like, and they were like, most people say, oh, I like everything, and it's like, that's not even an answer.
Thank you. You've clarified nothing. And so I kind of adopted that. I liked that. It resonated with me.
Yeah.
But then, of course, I finished the record and put it out, and it's not a folk rock record. I mean, it's drowning in electric guitars and reverb and delay. And I was like, but at the heart of the songs, at the heart of all that is the song, and especially the ones that were written on acoustic guitar.
Okay.
And so I thought, well, Outlaw Space Rock, there's a whole lot of elves and fairies and stuff going on, and I liked that, and I'd say it to people, and they go, yeah, okay, I can take it.
Okay.
So I thought, okay, all right, I'll stick with that.
So out of the 9 tracks that make up the album, is there one that started things off?
Yeah, I think, yeah. So for context, 9 songs, and they would have been written over about a 7-year period. So there's, and there's quite a spread. But I think if I had to pick one, I'd like to say this is where things sort of started to come together, and I felt like I was beginning to really find my voice, or find a voice that I liked. It would be The Enemy Within.
I am the wound that never heals. I am the bow that never bends. I'm the tale that no one tells. settles, the book that never ends. I am the storm that never settles, the day that never dawns. I am the plot that never twists, the seed that never spawns. I am the rumor of the party and the orgy on a yacht. I'm the billionaire who breathes for the 10 cents he hasn't got. I'm the lie that stays unspoken, the promise never kept. I am the void you'll never fill, the dust, the stink, the sweat. I'm the disciple full of passion who bleeds out in the dirt. I am the pain that breaks your heart, the words of love you never heard. I'm the monster you pretend you don't know hides inside your roof. This is the truth. This is the truth.
That and Bring the Pain were both, they're sort of written in the same period. They may have even been written in the same year. Because that's how I tend to think of songs, like the year that or where I was living when I wrote them. They were written in in Cromwell when I was in Central Otago we were living there. But when I can tell you a little story if you like about.
Please do. That's what we're here for.
Okay. Here's a story. So many years ago, like 20 years ago, or no, maybe even pushing 25, I read some of the books from Stephen King's Dark Tower series. I might have gotten to the third book. I never finished it. And there's this scene in one of the books, maybe it's the first one, where this kid goes into a trance or something. I can't even remember because I've never reread them. And he starts just blurting out these statements and saying, and this is the truth. And I remember reading that thing. Oh, that's pretty cool. And at some point subsequent to that, not too long after, I wrote a poem. It had, I don't know, 4 or 5 verses. A similar kind of thing, these statements and this is the truth. And then I just kind of forgot about it. So fast forward 10 years-ish.
Yep.
I'm sitting on my couch in Cromwell one night, just playing acoustic guitar. And this is, I've only just in the last year or two kind of started writing songs again. And I'm feeling my way and writing a lot of stuff. And a lot of it isn't great. But I think it is, and I've since realized better. And I came up with this little 3-chord riff kind of out of nowhere. That the main riff that drives the verses. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But you look, E, A, D, it's been done. And I put my guitar down and I stood up to walk across the living room to get a drink or something. And some of the words of that poem came into my head. I hadn't thought about it since I wrote it, I don't think. And they just kept going along to the music, and it was like, oh my gosh, there's a song here. And I'd been listening to, sort of revisiting some Dylan, particularly Shelter from the Storm. I love that song. And over the course of 3 days, I wrote that song, like just couplets coming into my head. I'd be walking to work and stuff coming to my head. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to remove this stuff so I can write it down when I get to work. And eventually I pared it all down, and it was 6 verses long. And, then a number of years later, I'm working on these songs with the guys who played on the record with me, and I played it to them, and they were like, yeah, man, that's great, but you got to dial it down.
Right.
6 verses. And I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. But yeah, the long and the short of that is that with that song, after I'd written it, it was wonderful. It was a real moment where I felt like, not only do I feel like I've leveled up as a writer here, but more importantly, I think I have written the most me song that I've ever written.
Cool.
And that was very exciting. But and what was particularly cool about it was that when we were making the record, and I played it for the guys, I had no idea. Like, I just knew I liked the song and I really wanted to record it, but I didn't have any kind of vision for it. And so, Andrew and Richard, who played drums and bass on the record, they started playing, and immediately it was like, oh, okay, this is some kind of hoedown, kind of barn stomping kind of vibe happening.
Right.
I can dig it. And so we did the drums and the bass and the main acoustic guitar part, and then it was like, well, now what? And by that stage, it was like one of the last songs that we did.
Right.
And I just finished writing the guitar solo for another song. I'd worked really hard. I was really happy with it. And I came to The Enemy Within and just went, oh, I got nothing. I'm all out of ideas. And in the end, I had this moment where I thought, you know what? Maybe it's okay for me just to have fun.
Right.
and in the end, I love how it turned out.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm interested. You're talking about being in the studio with these guys. Now, each one of the songs is at least 5 minutes long on this album, which is unusual. You know, people like to keep it simple and concise these days, and they're worried about people's short attention spans. So when you were in this, what was you touched on a little bit, but what was it like in the studio when you're actually laying these down? Were you thinking about things like that? Is most of this kind of live in the studio? How did you communicate with the other guys what you wanted to get across?
So what we did was we would sort of we would work on a block of songs, maybe like 3 or 4 songs. Like the first songs we recorded, we did a block of 5, one of which never made it onto the record. But we'd sort of workshop them for a bit, just here in this room, and then we'd go out to my friend Matt's place, and he had a wee studio, and we'd record. Right. And so it was like, okay, we're doing the bass and the drums. We'd do the drums first, and I would play the acoustic part, well, whatever the guitar part was.
Yep.
The main part. I've got a Marshall amp that you can like mute it and like record silently, so that worked quite well. Because we only had the one room to record.
Yeah, it keeps the bleed out.
Exactly. And so we did the drums for these 4 songs or 5 songs, and a scratch guitar and a scratch vocal, and then Richard came in and did the bass, and then and the same pattern followed with all of the songs that we did later on, and then Matt would kind of mix down a rough mix for me, turn it into an MP3. I'd take it home, and then I would pick a song and I would start working on it and go, okay, where is the space in this song? And not that I need to fill everything, but what could happen next?
Right.
What would make this more? And in terms of the length of the songs, this was what I guess you'd call it a passion project. I wasn't thinking about getting it on the radio. These dreams.
I don't think anybody thinks that like that.
Dreams
anymore.
were not in my head. No, since I was 18 years old, I'd wanted to make a record of my songs that was a rock record. I made some records in my 20s, in bands and stuff. But like this was I thought of this is my record. Okay. And I don't care about how long the songs are. I write a song until I think it's finished, until it feels finished. And if it's 3 minutes long, great. If it's 9 minutes long, great. Right. But I did definitely imagine it. While I didn't have like a grand view of the record, it was basically like a greatest hits of the songs I'd written over the last 7 or 8 years at that point.
Right.
I did want it. I did conceive of it as an album.
Gotcha.
To be listened to as an album.
Yep.
Which, obviously puts me a little bit out of step. But I've never really had much interest in being in step with things. I'm a bit of a contrarian in that respect.
Right.
If something is the current thing and everybody's doing it, I don't want to know about it.
Well, I got to say, lyrically, what you're getting across in your overall message seems to be fairly on topic for what's going on today, and it's a rather bleak message. So, do you want to touch on any of that without going into specifics too much? Because
yeah, I'm not a bleak. I do not think of myself as a bleak person. I think I'm actually quite an optimistic person. But I'm certainly a big fan of being realistic, of being honest about things. But and I've said this kind of thing to lots of people. I write songs usually after 8 o'clock at night in my little corner just over here. Right. Surrounded by guitars and my amps and my pedals and stuff.
Yep.
And I've got 3 kids and my wife, and and I can play pretty loud in here. It's pretty cool, and I've never had complaints. But often I'm just sitting there, usually with an acoustic guitar, and I just noodle away until I find something that sounds good, and then lyrically, I don't edit myself. At least not in the writing process. I edit later. And so I just, whatever pops into my head, if I think it fits emotionally with the music, I write it down. And I would add to that, I'm a guy who reads Dostoevsky for fun.
Right.
That's messed up.
Yes, yeah, but still, I'm not judging. Certainly not.
Yeah, but I, who knows where this comes from? But I really, we were talking about Simon and Garfunkel earlier. That stuff, like, it resonated with me as a kid.
Right.
And I know this is not a psychotherapy session, but just for context, I'm 47. I probably spent the first 35, maybe even 40 years of my life battling with feeling particularly positive about myself, especially the first 30. And I don't know where that started, but it started when I was very little. And so I think that's partly why the Simon and Garfunkel stuff really resonated with me.
Yeah.
And now, the point I'm at in my life now, I have a wonderful life. And irrespective of how the record might sound, I'm not a negative person in a negative place. The song "All I Can Bleed,"
Yep.
I played that live one time, and a friend of mine was. Oh no, I sent it to a friend. I sent it to a bunch of friends. So one of my friends came back. He was like, "Oh, Jeremy, are you okay?"
Are you okay?
And I was like, "Thank you, I appreciate it." But I actually wrote the song like 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm supposed to be a haven, a shelter from the storm, the hands that tuck you in at night, the bed that keeps you warm. But I'm staring down a barrel, alone there in the dark, wondering if a bullet would kill the demons in my heart.
And even when I wrote it, I wasn't in a bad place.
Yeah.
But I'd come up with this piece of music that I loved, and it was like this. You write a piece of music and you go, well, this cannot be a happy song. This is not a happy song piece of music. And so I just, eventually, I was going through a very stressful period in my life when I wrote it. But it wasn't written about that period.
Yeah.
I was thinking back to a much more difficult time in my life, which, had I not gone through, I probably wouldn't have been able to cope with the period I was going through at the time. And, the songs that I write, like, lyrically, yes, they're very personal a lot of the time, probably most of the time, all the time. But they're also snapshots, and of a moment in time. And it might be the moment that I'm in as I'm writing, or it might be a past moment. Sometimes it's a future moment. I've written things where I've been like, well, I don't really know where this came from, but I like it, and that's cool. And then some years down the track, I'll be listening to it or playing it again and going, oh, wow, that's interesting.
Cool.
So, yeah, I don't know who said this. It could have been Chris Cornell, or it might have been someone talking about, sort of after he died. I can never remember. But I heard someone say that, a lot of people think, oh, you've got to be really miserable to, and unhappy to write good songs. That's not true at all.
Right.
It's possible to write good songs when you're miserable, certainly, but it's not a prerequisite.
Yeah.
But what they said that was more interesting was, but what's probably better is if you have been miserable, or you've gone through a really hard time or whatever, and you've come out of it, and gotten some perspective, and then you write a song about it. And I, a lot of my songs, like, there's some dark stuff in there, but I dig that. But at the same time, while I try to not try to write songs, I do try to let them breathe, and I like to end on what I perceive as being a positive note. I like there to be rays of hope.
Yep.
I have no interest in writing songs like, oh, everything sucks and we should all just jump out of windows.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Well, sometimes everything does suck. but while there is life, there is hope. And, I've just started, I've got a website now, and I'm sort of becoming a real boy, and I've just started a blog. and I was just the first real blog post that I wrote it yesterday, I think. And I just said, sort of at the end of it, I'm fortunate just to be alive.
Yep.
Yeah, life is hard. Sometimes it's crippling and miserable, and the world's full of idiots, useful or otherwise. And there's always something to get upset about or worry
That's
about.
true. Yep.
But what good does that do?
Yep.
You know, you and I have gotten to be alive at a time where Mark Knopfler and Alice in Chains and a million other amazing people
Yes.
have been making amazing music.
That's true.
And yeah, we're going to die one day. Well, yeah, we are. So, but that's okay.
Yep. Yep.
All the more reason to live well now.
I agree.
To try to find something that we love and do it.
Yep. All right. On a happier note, so to speak, let's talk about your guitar playing. You have a track called "Crossing the Rubicon," which has a killer guitar bit in it. So
thank you.
That might be a good touchstone to tell me what your relationship with your guitar and your playing. And you mentioned Mark Knopfler and all that, and I heard a little bit of that in there. Not in that particular song, but overall.
As a man once said, I like to play.
Okay.
So I started out learning on my dad. My dad had an old Yamaha acoustic, and I started out learning on that. And and I've had a few guitars over the years, but I have a couple of Les Paul copies. They're made by a company called Tokai, and they're quite different from each other. One of them I used for one has a very clean kind of sound, and I used it for the what you might call lead guitar parts that were not guitar solos.
Gotcha.
And then I have another one that's quite a bit older, that's been Frankensteined a bit, and I used that for guitar solos. As far as electric guitar goes, I'm a big with all guitar playing. I suppose I would say less is more. Mm. But with Shadows in the Shade, I decided to take the approach that more is more. I was like, screw it, I don't care. Yep. So I used a lot of delay, a lot of reverb, and I mean, there's so many different guitarists who I've really loved and who have influenced me. But The Edge from U2 would be one, and that's probably not a cool thing to say these days.
It's probably
possibly.
Not, but that's all right.
But I love his use of space, his use of delay, delay into delay, and the cool kind of stuff that you can do with that. I don't do it the way that he does. With him, it's much more of a obviously signature kind of thing. I don't do like Where the Streets Have No Name kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I do like the effect that you can get by having two lots of delay.
Sure.
And then you chuck some reverb on that and just get ridiculous. But in terms of lead guitar, guitar solos, and I don't think of myself, I've never thought of myself as a lead guitarist. For this record, I kind of had, I literally sat down and was like, wow, I guess I'm going to have to learn how to relearn how to be a lead guitarist.
Okay.
Far out. But, and it's funny actually, the first song that I started doing additional guitar parts for was Homecoming, which is the last track.
Will we dust off our dreams before they desert us? Wander the hills that once nourished our souls. I'm coming home, the only place I wanna be. I'm coming home, the only one that I still remember.
And it's funny, I've had a number of times since I made the record where I've been listening to, some like a band that I love, and it suddenly dawned on me when I was playing that guitar solo or that guitar solo, I was trying to channel this song. I didn't realize it at the time, but I get it now. Probably, what's the point I'm trying to make? I think, there's been so many different, as I say, so many different guitarists who will have influenced my playing in some way.
Right.
Stylistically, as I say, the edge in terms of delay and and leaving space and that kind of thing. But in terms of like actually attacking the fretboard, I would have to say Jerry Cantrell of Alice in Chains.
All right.
And I'm not a heavy guitarist. I don't have that kind of energy.
Right.
As much as I might like to, might want to. But when I was about 20, I bought a copy. It was a double EP, which I thought was very strange. I was like, double EP? Why wouldn't you just release a record? That's weird. Right, yeah. Well,
that's a whole other discussion.
Yeah. I didn't know that it was because there was no internet at the time. Yeah. That this was actually 2 EPs that had been released quite separately from each other. Sap and Jar of Flies. And the first song I heard, and I can never remember which of the 2 EPs it's actually on, but it's the first one on one of them, is a song called Rotten Apple. And it's very, very slow, an acoustic guitar part, and then this wah-soaked electric guitar part comes in. And it's just amazing. The playing itself is cool. It's nothing particularly, it's not, fretboard pyrotechnics or anything. But just the tone and the way he bends the notes. I just remember listening to it going, what the hell is this? Yep. This is the coolest thing I have ever heard.
There you go.
And it was, yeah. And that song, circling back to Homecoming, that song in particular, I wasn't consciously trying to emulate that sound. But you will have noticed there's a lot of wah on the record. I've got this really cool little wah pedal that I picked up for like $30 a while ago, made by an outfit called George Dennis Wahs. I think they're based in Czechoslovakia. Nobody has them. I got 2 of them, and they
there you go.
But I love the sound of it. And when we were recording that song, we'd recorded that main little sort of like lead guitar part, not in the guitar solo, but early on in the song.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I've written it here on the fretboard and here on the fretboard, and I probably want it to be like here for part and here for the other part, but I'm not sure yet. So we'll just do a whole take up high, and then we'll do another whole take down low, and then we can fool around with it. And so we did that, and then the next week I came back and Matt just kind of hit play, and it started running, and both tracks were playing, and they were harmonizing with each other. It was like, oh my gosh, that's awesome! We have to do that. And I don't know, anyone else who listens to that might go, oh yeah, that's cool, or whatever. They'll have whatever opinions they have, and maybe they would disagree with me. But when I heard it, my first thought was Rotten Apple. It reminded me of it, and I was so excited. For me, it was this wonderful sort of moment where I was like, that's cool. I wasn't even trying to do that. And here, by accident, we've made something cool.
Excellent.
Yeah. Sorry, that's a very long answer.
That's all right. We want the story, the full story. We don't want the abridged version.
But back to your original question. As far as acoustic guitar goes, to me, electric and acoustic guitar are very different animals, and I approach them very differently. I've hardly picked up my electric guitars in the last 2 years because I've been playing on my own, and so when I gig, it's just acoustic guitars. But I've got, and I thought about trying to set things up so you could see stuff, but it wasn't going to work well. I've got a couple of Ibanez acoustics that I've had for quite a while, and one of them I keep an open E, not on Shadows in the Shade. That in Shadows in the Shade, that was my main standard tuning guitar, and then the other one I tuned to this weird tuning that Chris Cornell, I believe, came up with.
Right.
And I've written a bunch of My Own Drum, All I Can Bleed, and The Ballad of Frosty Jack are all written in that. And then my wife convinced me to buy a Gibson J200 about 18 months ago. It's my dream guitar, and it's amazing. It doesn't feature on the record because I didn't own it at the time, but it will feature heavily on subsequent records.
Oh, good.
And I've also now got a 40-year-old Ibanez 12-string that a friend has given me sort of on permanent loan.
Right.
And that's pretty cool.
Excellent.
I'm planning for that to feature in the future too. But I don't know. In terms of how I play, every time if you tune a guitar differently, it wants to be played in a different way. Every guitar wants to be played in its own way.
Right.
And at least that's how I look at it. I'm probably a bit of some kind of silly Zen dickhead when it comes to this kind of stuff. But to me, every guitar is its own thing. And I, in a way, I would say that I kind of ascribe to the school of thought that says that some guitars come preloaded with songs.
Okay.
And if you're the guy who's lucky enough to be playing it on the day,
there you
get
go.
the song.
They're your songs too.
Yeah.
Excellent. So you're talking about the future. Are you doing gigs? Are you thinking about the next record? Have you changed your attitude about who you are and what you're doing music-wise after making this record?
That is a really good question. Am I doing gigs? Yes.
Okay.
I just played one yesterday.
Okay.
Out at Wee Cafe in Port Chalmers. So I'm just doing solo stuff. I did a wee tour last year. After I put the record out, of course, as soon as I started preparing to do that, I discovered that I could only play about 4 of the songs live convincingly.
All right.
On my own, but
that
was okay because I'd written a whole lot of other ones.
Gotcha.
Late last year, late October, I made another record. Basically a friend of mine was like, "Hey man, I've got this, I got a 4-track. I've been doing a lot of demos and recording some song stuff. If you ever want to do, just record some demos, just let me know." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's cool." And then, but I'd been kind of, actually, I'll save the story hopefully for a future time when I've actually put it out. But we ended up going, actually, let's just make a record.
Yeah.
And so it's just me and acoustic guitar because I thought, I'm playing all this stuff live, but I have this record that doesn't sound anything like what I'm doing live. Wouldn't it be nice if I had a record that did sound like how I sound
representative,
live?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I am at the moment quietly making plans, sort of saying to try to assemble pieces to record what will be the real follow-up.
Okay. Well, hopefully it's not too quietly.
Oh no. It's going to be different because all the songs are written on acoustic guitar, but I basically plan to approach it in much the same way. Get the core part of the song down and then go, okay, what can we do with this? And the plan is to drown it in electric guitars.
There you go. So obviously you're highly influenced and motivated by Alice in Chains and Soundgarden and the music of the 90s. Your age is perfect for all that. But do you hear anything contemporary that kind of piques your interest?
Probably not as much as I should, though. I have recently, and this will probably make me one of the bad guys as well.
Oh.
I recently stumbled across a song. It was by Youngblood.
Oh yeah.
Confound it. What's it called? It's one of the songs that he did with Steve Tyler.
Steve Tyler, yeah.
Yeah, and I stumbled across the acoustic version of it, and I was like, "Oh wow, this is really cool."
Yep.
I mean, there's some young Dunedin bands that are really good,
Yep.
but yeah, I am a bit of a dinosaur. I'm still listening to, I'm just kind of discovering and quietly and kind of digging back into like Ozzy Osbourne and Bruce Springsteen.
There you go.
Because there's a lot of stuff that I missed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now it's all at your fingertips, so it's kind of overwhelming, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a crazy, amazing world. For better or worse, I say to my boys regularly, "There's no solutions, boys. There's just trade-offs."
Yeah. Words.
And having it at your fingertips is awesome.
Yep.
nothing to not like there. But at the same time, that has come at a cost.
Yeah.
You know, and I see your wall of vinyl behind you.
Yeah.
I just think that's fantastic.
You should see what's in front of me. It's an even bigger wall.
Yeah. One day, probably when my boys have left home and I have a little more spare cash, I want to get a nice stereo, a nice record player, and I'm going to start buying all my CDs on vinyl.
Yep.
I would love to put Shadows in the Shade out on vinyl.
Yep.
That's kind of why I put it out on CD, because I was like, I have to do something physical.
Well, CDs sound pretty good these days. I'm not anti-CD at all, so I think it's an excellent format. It sounded crappy when they first started, but once they figured out how to master them properly and do all that stuff, we're in good shape.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm just moving forward. I'm just keep on trying to play more gigs. I mean, one day I would love to be able to have like a full-time band, maybe kind of a Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers kind of thing, where it was like a couple of electric guitars and acoustic and bass and someone on keys or organ. But as I saw in a meme recently, the difficult thing about having a band in your 40s is that everybody's really, really tired.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Sorry. If I can circle back.
Sure.
Because I totally meant to say this, and I've just realized I completely forgot. In terms of acoustic guitar,
okay,
because I didn't really talk about influences, and I want to because this matters to me. Derek Lind.
Oh, okay.
Who have you heard of him? I know
I've heard of him.
Reed.
I can't say I know a lot about him, but I know the name.
Yeah, I'm sure I've read some of Graham Reed's reviews of his records. I met Derek about 20.
He would do,
yeah.
He and I do a podcast together right here, so I'll talk to him about it next time.
Yeah. Well, I met Derek 25 years ago or so, and he's been sort of my unknowing and unwilling, at least in the sense that he didn't actively consent to it,
right?
Artistic mentor.
Oh, good.
His album, well, it was more of a greatest hits, really. 12 Good Hours of Daylight. Anyway, sorry, I'm confusing that with his other one, Salvo, and his most recent record, Solo. Like his guitar playing and the way that he writes songs, at least the way he was writing 20, 25 years ago, had a massive impact on me, because I was trying to I was stumbling around, writing songs about girls and dumb stuff. And then I heard his stuff and I was like, oh my gosh, like he writes about these ordinary things, his family and his kids and just different stuff, but it's so real, it's so honest. And I love the way he attacked the acoustic guitar. It was so restrained and yet so powerful. And he's based in Auckland in the Waitakere Ranges. And I have this. I'm on my own personal little crusade that whenever I have the opportunity to tell people about Derek Lind, I tell people, because he doesn't get the recognition that he deserves.
Okay, well, job is done. You've done it again. All righty. Well, very good. We'll wrap this up then. We'll get back to our real lives. But I thank you for talking to me about it all. This is fascinating, and hopefully we'll see you with a full band up here in Auckland sometime and hear these songs in real space and time.
Hopefully one day. Yeah. And look, thank you so much for having me on, Marty. It's been a real pleasure.
If you enjoyed this episode of the 13th Floor's Music Talk series, please be sure to subscribe to the website or to the YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram and wherever you find your podcasts. There's a whole lot more to discover.